Story 1. The canoe flipped and the force of the water on my back drove me into a rock 8 feet below the roaring surface. At the moment of impact, my soul leaped out of my body. I watched the collision of body and rock from the vantage point of looking through my body as my chest gave way to the force of the impact. Then I quickly slipped back into my body, realizing that this was serious. I needed to maintain consciousness until I would reach the surface about 8 feet above. When I reached the turbulent surface, I exhaled my last breath as my heart stopped beating. As I floated through the remaining rough water towards the foot of the rapids, my friends swam out to rescue me. But I had already left for another world. I had returned to a familiar, comfortable, and loving place that I recognized as home. Even though everything was dark and no one there to greet me, I wanted so desperately to remain, for it was so comfortable and full of what I knew to be love. But it wasn't my time. I couldn't stay. I had to leave and go back. I was being forced back into a body that I no longer wanted. I fought with every ounce of willpower I could draw on to remain in that beautiful spiritual realm. After 3 hard-fought attempts to resist returning to this physical reality, I was overpowered. My forced, slow re-entry to this reality came about by dots of energy rushing across my vision from left to right. The full 4-color spectrum of dotted energy were attempting to form into the structure we call physical. Dots were attempting to become trees, rocks, water, and sky. Yet I continued resisting this world, willing myself to remain in the wonderful feeling of my heavenly home. As I did, the physical world of multicolored dots would be replaced with darkness, and I would return to the familiarity of ultimate love. I made 3 attempts not to return to the physical. Each process was the same until my will was no match for the energies that wanted me to return to this life. Soon trees, clouds, rocks, and water formed from right to left. In seconds, the familiar fabric that I knew so well reconstructed itself out of the darkness of death. Quickly, the construct had worked its way into my familiar world, and soon I was back in my damaged body. I was hearing the rush of water, feeling my body bounce up and down in the waves, and hearing the distant screams of my friends. There was no way of getting me medical help. We were a day and a half away from our vehicles with no cell service to call in an emergency helicopter. We were on our own with approximately 15 km of canoeing remaining and more rapids yet to navigate. I had many broken and cracked ribs. My sternum was caved in, my blood pressure very low, and my heart had shifted. My task was to stay conscious and keep moving. Fortunately, 8 years previously, in 1998, I had learned the art of breathing to control thoughts, which meant I had control over fear and anxiety. That allowed all my energy to be acutely focused on each breath. That night, the breath became my best friend. In through my nose, out through my mouth, over and over. I still had 2 more days before getting help. Each breath delivering clean, healthy energy and oxygen in, and each exhale taking the edge off the pain. I pushed the group to keep paddling late into the day, so I could spend the night in a trapper's small, abandoned log cabin at the edge of the river. My night was spent sitting inside on a wooden picnic table in the company of mice running back and forth along the logs. I concentrated on pushing my broken, distorted ribs back into place, and eventually my sternum lost its concave shape. For the first time, I was talking to my body like a parent would lovingly comfort a child who needed help. Each breath was an effort, yet each one allowed me to take another, and then another. 2 days later in the hospital, I was told that my right lung had collapsed and my chest was filling with fluid. It was there on that picnic table, with the mice all around me, that I realized there was one thing I had not fulfilled. Throughout my life, I have been psychic. I approached everything with curiosity, was actively engaged in social action, and had fully immersed myself in metaphysical studies. I had so much to offer, but did not yet feel complete. I was unable to speak my truth to the extent I knew I could. I sat teary-eyed, thanking the universe for this opportunity for a new life, to complete that one all-important part of myself. I would now make speaking my truth a top priority, and all I had to do was survive. Something inside was blocking the energy flow and was sabotaging my efforts. Then 2 years ago in Mexico, during a discussion group, a major blockage was released. The topic was shame. I thought I had none. It turned out I was mistaken, and without warning, a lifetime of silenced shame erupted in waves of uncontrolled emotion. I had been hiding shame for being dyslexic. Abilities like reading, writing, and occasionally speaking were often hindered and embarrassingly challenging. Yet I thought they were so well controlled and managed that there was no shame. The culmination of loving energy within the small group, along with my being unconsciously ready for release, triggered my kundalini to uncoil and release its pent-up energies. Waves of emotion erupted from the base of my spine, pulsating my solar plexus muscles, moving through the chest, into the shoulders, and out my mouth. Tears flowed as a stream and words were inaudible. An emptiness followed and I was finally set free. As of that day, my fear of speaking and giving voice to my truth disappeared, and I've been able to get on with my work ever since. I hope this story helps people realize that the beauty in living is every bit as wonderful as what awaits us on the other side of this earthly experience. Being able to embrace our time here with appreciation is our reward. This story was shared by Hugh P. and happened in 2006.
Story 2. I was 5 years old riding my black pony named Fireball with my twin sister, dad, mom, and their friend who were watching. My dad wanted to show off our riding skills to his friend. My dad chose me to demonstrate because I was more fearless than my sister. The pen was muddy and not good for riding. I knew this but didn't care. I started cantering around and I was doing my tricks. I turned the reins to the right and the pony's legs crossed to the left. I felt us going down towards the fence. The next thing I see, I am directly above my body looking down with a 360-degree view. I see the pony's legs straighten out. I saw a tinge of my pink jacket by the wither underneath the pony. I felt no pain and also felt free. There were no emotions or fear. I felt sound in the mind and was hyper-aware that I was still me, even though I felt no attachment to the body under the horse. As I continued to slowly rise, I continued to look down at the scene. I hear my mother scream. I see my parents rushing towards me and my sister was looking scared at the gate. Then I was in pure blackness that was endlessly everywhere. But I was not scared, which was odd because I'm still scared of the dark. I heard someone talking to me but didn't see anyone. I questioned everything. I asked what seemed like a million questions and the answer was given to me completely and entirely in my mind. I knew that every action may seem evil, but it worked for the greater good. All was perfect in one way or the other. I asked about religion and the vastness of it all. The only answer I could recall afterwards was the word dogma. This word stood for the concept that the truth was muddled by man's feelings. Although coming from our good intentions, it was inhibiting others from spiritually growing. I felt like I spent a long time in this place asking all kinds of questions to this being that was patient and kind to answer these basic questions. I felt so intelligent and full. Then there was a pinprick of light. All of a sudden, I was in a realm that had the whitest clouds and big marble buildings. There were people scurrying around there. The light was everywhere and everything was light. Light could be seen in the tiniest of detail. It was beautiful. There was a group of people that came to meet me. I know they knew me and were so excited and happy to see me. I didn't know who they were. I continued to ask these beings more questions. It was so overwhelming with love and information that I had to step away from the group. The next memory I had was being at the bottom of some marble stairs. There were 2 tall beings in white robes. I want to say they were angels. They were beautiful but intimidating and masculine. One angel was blonde with longer curly hair, and the other had darker hair. Both of them knew me. Yet I asked who they were. They reminded me, and then I remembered that I knew them. They were happy to see me, and I could feel giddiness and excitement. They looked up the stairs and said that someone wanted to talk to me. I felt like I floated to the top of the stairs. I met someone that I knew was very important, and I believe it was Jesus. I knew I didn't do enough for him in my life. I felt ashamed to be in the presence of this authority figure and had missed the point of why I was in this life. I was also embarrassed that I had to be reminded that he gave me this life and asked me what did I do with it. I felt like he understood me, loved me, and there was no judgment. I was told that I had to go back. I must have refused because my next memory was to show me why I had to return to my body. He said, "Think of your mom and dad if you pass away." I thought it was strange I hadn't thought about them at all since floating away to this place. He showed me this transparent video screen of what my mom and dad and sister's lives would be like if I didn't return. It showed all of their lives instantaneously from start to finish. I was shown that it would be a harder life for each of them, full of sadness. I felt guilt and sadness for them to have to go through that. but I still was hesitant because I knew that it wouldn't be long at all for my loved ones to be where I was. He said, "This is your life and purpose," while he showed me my future life on the screen. I saw that I would be involved in the church I am in now. I would be married and have 3 boys. I now have them running through the house. I saw each one of their futures. I saw that my life had a ripple effect for the people in my life. I had many choices to choose from for the outcome to be great or not so great. I was disappointed in some ways because I felt with all the knowledge I learned, I was wasting my life. Life is a beautiful gift from God. I realized that I was very materialistic and missing the point of life. He showed me Earth and it looked like a picture of a faraway satellite. While slowly moving, he showed me there will be a dark time on Earth after some time. I felt so compelled to come back just for that time. I wanted to be a light of good and redeem myself to fulfill my purpose. I had that urgency and feeling to go back and make a difference. I just had to. I knew that I would return and it wouldn't be long at all to go and come right back here. It would be like a blink of an eye. As soon as I had the thought, I felt like I was being sucked down a dark vortex tunnel that curved down to Earth. On my way down, I realized there were evil beings on either side towards the bottom of the tunnel. We didn't acknowledge them. I was given the same answers instantaneously of their origin and why they were there. I knew that it was the being with me in the dark before my journey had started. I was put back in my body. I was in the bathtub being held by Mother and my sister. My soul felt like it didn't fit. It was so confined and cold. The intelligence, love, and peace were gone and replaced with feelings of pain, uncertainty, and fear. The world seemed so gray to me, and I felt dumb and alone again. I was crying and had dirt in my mouth. Looking back, there was no pain in my body, which is miraculous. I don't remember anything from the time my mom and dad took me out from under the pony to the bathtub. My parents told me I had no injuries and was sucked into the mud without a single bruise, scratch, or broken bone. God is good. This story was shared by Jessica K. and happened a long time ago. Story 3. When I was 6, I was lying on the couch. There was a window next to me. I suddenly stopped breathing and then felt the most peaceful moment. I then noticed I could float. So I elevated upwards and went through the wall. My soul or spirit knew where exactly to go. Then high above the house, I saw a being full of a strong and bright but gentle light that did not hurt my eyes. I was a happy child, but I never felt so much happiness as when I was with this being. I didn't know who he was since I was only 6 years old. Later, I knew I was in front of God. He came to me. I was the happiest, like an endless happiness because I was close to him. I started jumping around him like a deer jumps when playing. He smiled at me and felt happy too. I had 199% brain capacity. I understood why I was born, and the reason was to be with him. I felt an incredible, weightless feeling. I remember this place felt way more real than life on Earth. I never felt so loved and accepted like in this experience. He was young and full of love. I can hardly find words to describe entirely the feeling that his love and presence made me feel. It was like going back to my real home and with my real family. I was having so much fun with him, I wanted to stay there. He was totally accepting of me. He was not judging me for being annoying or jumping too much. The more I jumped and laughed around him, the happier he was with me. That's why I felt great acceptance and no judgment of my actions. Suddenly, I went back to my body. My grandma was a nurse who was giving me CPR. I remember feeling a heavy and unclean feeling to be back in my body, which was the opposite of where I had been. I had never felt depressed during my childhood until my grandma brought me back to life. I instantly felt sad. When I was 26 years old, I had a pulmonary embolism due to taking birth control pills. I had 2 clots in one lung. I saw a dark tunnel. As soon as I saw the light, I wanted to walk towards it because I knew that light from before. It was him. All I wanted to do was to reach the light. I couldn't see around me as it was really dark. The first step I took, someone stopped me by putting a giant arm on my chest. It was strong but really gentle and never would hurt me. I pushed the arm away and said, "Excuse me, I have to go." The arm stopped me again. I felt angry. Without talking, the being mentioned my 4-year-old daughter. I didn't communicate with words. It was more like telepathy. I let him know that my daughter didn't need me and that she would be okay. I reasoned that if something bad happens, She will be back home here with us. But he would not let me pass because it wasn't my time. I should be happy. Yet for years I felt he brought me back to suffer more since this life has been hell. The only thing I know for sure is that there is life after death, and it is way more real than this one. This story was shared by Naomi and happened in 1987.